Hey guys, I want to do a quick video on how to diagnose photos and cars and auctions on Copart. So I've been buying cars from Copart for about a year now. Now I've done probably three that I've actually bought. I did most of those last year. I'm looking at buying one tomorrow, but I wanted to show you some things that I just noticed when I looked at the auction again that makes me think I don't want to buy the vehicle. And I'm going to go through why at first I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy it. And then I'm going to key you into some of those things that I noticed and what I started looking at and why I'm now very hesitant to buy this vehicle. Let's get into it. Hey guys, let's go and get into Copart. So some of the things I wanted to talk about are, some of the decision-making procedures that I've used when buying cars on Copart. I would recommend if you're new to Copart, you watch a bunch of auctions, you watch videos, you watch tutorials, you read the website, you know how the fees are done, you understand the vehicle listing types, whether you can bid, you can't bid, your state rules as far as can you bid on a salvage title vehicle in your state, or do you have to go through a broker? Do you have to go through a broker for like clean title vehicles? Just know the rules, know what you can bid and not bid on. Copart will tell you, yeah, you can't bid on this, you don't have a license. So keep you from doing that. But they'll never stop you from clicking on a bid. So just know that, if you click on it, that's binding. So that's something else to keep in mind, as well as, your buying power, methods of payment, unsecured, secured. They have a whole fee listing on there. It's kind of hard to find. I might try to pull that up here in a minute. Know that fee listing schedule. And also, if you're not prepared to pay for a vehicle and deal with the fees, just walk away. The fees after you get over a $1,500 vehicle for unsecured payment are just, they're kind of brutal, especially for an individual that's just kind of hitting and pecking around. So if you're gonna if you really got your heart set on something, either be prepared to pay, whatever it is, or just be prepared to walk away and just say I'll find another one later. Because more oftentimes than not, I would come in and bid on something, and it would just keep going up and up and up. And I always came out at the end from parting out these trucks. I'd part out Chevys, but I wasn't making the profit that I could have because, for one, I was paying for somebody to haul it to me. That was always $300 or $400. I was always paying for the guy to come take it to the scrap yard. That was always $50. So there's a lot of extra fees, not including the Copart fees, that I was paying that were eating into my overall profit. I wasn't doing it to make a profit, but the goal was to get parts off of those vehicles and then sell the parts so that I ended up not paying for the parts I needed and kind of breaking even. That was the goal. I either needed a motor or a transfer case. I've got some older Chevy vehicles, and both of those can be expensive, but if you don't mind putting in the sweat equity, then it's not too bad. So I want to go and show you. I was really thinking about buying a Jeep this week, but I realized after looking at two of these Jeeps that I'm probably not going to bid on either of them. I might bid on this one tomorrow if it stays less than $225, which means it can only be bid up twice. It's $25 increments. After $1,000, I'm pretty sure it goes up by $100 increments. Lots of fun. So I was really looking at this Jeep here. Let's pull this one up. And I was like, oh yeah, this looks great. I looked at it. Another tip I'll give you, if you're new to Copart and you're like, oh, I've got the app, I'm going to look at vehicles and I'll bid on those vehicles using the app. I will bid on them using the app, but make sure that you pull up the vehicle that you're wanting to look at in a browser, on a computer, on a big screen. There's a reason for that. You will not see things on the app. Even if you zoom in and everything, you will just miss stuff. And that's why at first glance, I really wanted this Jeep. I was like, oh yeah, it looks like it's got a lift and I'll sell the tires, and I'll probably be at zero on the Jeep, after I sell the tires, I won't own anything on the Jeep. And then, if I put some money into the Jeep, that's fine. But after I got in here on the website, I started looking at the images in HD. I realized that this Jeep is a piece of garbage and it's a money pit. And so I'm going to go in real quick and pick out the things that I noticed the first time, and then going through it the second time on the computer, why I'm not going to buy this Jeep. Or maybe I will. I know it's going to start out right here, but it's probably just an absolute waste of money. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll never. There's no reason to rebuild this thing. It's just a trailer queen to go play with, and that's the only reason I would think about rebuilding it. But you got to make a checklist. So let's go through it. So here's the first picture. It looks like I can see some fender damage. The hood looks okay. The front end, I really don't care. I just looked at that the first time and noticed, oh yeah, it looks like, the fender flares are gone and it looks like there's some good distance here. Maybe it's got a lift on it. It's got rough country. Obviously, it's got a lift. They put biohazard on it. You'll see from the other pictures. It's just gross inside and I can wash it. Like whatever, if people get in accidents, they puke or there's blood or something. Um, Obviously, if you see in the pictures that there's, you know, if some of the vehicles they're just ugly to look at, and that somebody, it didn't make it. These are, that's just. So I won't spend any time on vehicles like that, but those are obviously going to be listed as biohazard, most of them. Um, this one, of course, other than this damage, I guess it's biohazard. Maybe there's something else in there. It smells or something. I don't know what their criteria are for biohazard. Um, let's look at what I saw the second time. So let's go down here. So there's something very important. Right here is the shock. That means that the shock tower, the place where the shock actually mounts, either it's unbolted or it's broke. Now I can weld. I have a good buddy that can weld and we can do all that stuff. I'm not really afraid of that. It's just that it's more work. It also means that, there could be an issue down here with the axle, which I don't feel like as soon as I get at the Jeep going to buy a new front axle. These are cheap. They're Dana 30s. I just don't want to deal with it. Let's look at this as well. It looks like this stabilizer bar here is bent. So this is going to be an instant throwaway and tear off. Also, the steering bracket here, the track bar, who knows what condition the track bar's in. There's a piece of junk here laying over. Here's the steering bracket that goes over the pitman arm and the steering box. That's just hanging there, chilling out. So God only knows what happened to the steering box. I do have a spare one. It's just that who knows? Like that's just something else to look at. So let's go to the next picture. And don't forget to click on HD. Gives you a much better image. These rims, tires, they're probably 15 inch, 16. These maybe are 16, 17 inch. I really can't tell. I mean, the tires are just trash. The rims I could sell for, I don't know, $100, $50. It's better than it'll always anything incremental counts down towards what I have in the vehicle, which is hopefully the bare minimum. Obviously there's the steering bracket and pitman arm just chilling out. Doesn't look like the radiator and condenser core are too damaged, but you can see the distance here between that side and this side. There's some distance on the frame. So there's some obvious, issues where could have been compressed. I'm not seeing anything else. Let's go to the next video. One thing I do like, having a Jeep with a hitch on the back is really nice to get out. I've had my last Jeep, my old Jeep Cherokee did not have a hitch on the back, and it just was a real pain to get it out of, to either have somebody pull you out. So having a hitch on the back is a really nice little recovery feature. You can hook up to those bars there. They're really strong, and you can use those. Or you can put a winch and all kinds of stuff here on the back on the hitch. So that picture, lights, whatever, don't care. It's sitting level on the back and on the front, which means that most of the suspension's intact. I noticed that this side is obviously quite a bit higher, or maybe a little bit higher. So I'm kind of curious about that. To me, it's obvious. See, there's like this little extension bar here on the leaf spring, this little knuckle. That tells me right now that there's a lift on it. Looks like that's backwards though. Whatever. Who knows? All right, yeah. So here's some of the biohazard. Yummy. This is great. Um, just looks like total trash in here. Oh wow, there is a key. Whoop-de-doo. So the door panel's gone. Um, this is not a terrible concern to me because you can just push that button. The only problem is that that button doesn't work and you can't shift the gears. You have more stuff to work on. I'm not looking for a major project right now. That was definitely something I noticed though. It could have been that there was an animal or something that got in here. I don't know what happened to that thing. Obviously, there's just trash and all kinds of nasty stuff here in the bottom. Let's go to the next picture. More trash, whatever. So this is another image that I saw that led me to believe that I really don't want to buy this Jeep. So at first glance, I was like, oh, whatever. It's an engine bay. Whoop-de-doo. Let's look at it a little bit closer. So right over here on the left, obviously there's no battery. If you scan right over here, you can see that there's a plug in there. It looks like the wires have been ripped out. And also the fuse box, all the fuses are gone. So if you get to buy all those fuses, that's more than the Jeep's worth to buy those stupid fuses. Unless you got a box laying on hand and you can go to a pull apart or something and get that fuse box, that's going to cost you some money to buy those fuses individually, and that's more labor. Not worth it to me. There's some extra wiring here. I don't know what the hell that is. There's wiring everywhere in here. This is just, oh wow, they had to label that ground. No crap. All right, so you can see over here, there's no radiator cap. There's crap and dust. Maybe that blew out from the radiator cap. Maybe the radiator cap blew off because the motor blew. That's another thing. This vehicle is listed as enhanced. Where the heck is that? Enhanced. I don't understand what enhanced means on Copart because it can literally just be a piece of crap. And they're like, oh, it's enhanced. It's like maybe they covered it or there's something that they don't tell you that they did, but it's somebody trying to get more money for it. And it's just, if it's garbage, like don't polish a turd. I'm just being honest. So yeah, here's the damage. They labeled it front end chemical. Um, so yeah, there's that problem. There's no radiator cap. That power steering pump, that looks kind of newer-ish. And then there's this hose that goes over from the radiator all the way down here. It's almost like that's the dump out valve, and they have it going over to the box. It's just, yeah, they must have it looping around down here in the bottom, then going over to the radiator coolant tank. What the heck? I mean, I guess I just haven't seen one that color. Sometimes they'll cap them off. It's just more crap. Um, the hoses look reasonable. These 4 liters, the heads are very long on them, much longer than any V8 or V6, and they are known to warp. If they warp, you can usually machine the warp out of them, throw them back on because the block is cast iron, heads are cast iron. So usually the block doesn't tear up, but if the bottom end, you got coolant in the bottom end, start over. Just coolant just loves to eat bearings for lunch, and you're out of motor. Thankfully, motors for these are cheap. Except if this is going to remain a cheap Jeep, then it's not worth the time. So here's the gauge cluster. There's really nothing here except for the mileage. Whoop-de-doo. Here's more of the front end, and here's, a picture of stuff I don't care about. So all in all, this is, it's on auction tomorrow. Yeah, I want to buy it because there's some good things about it. It has a lift, and I might already have parts to fix the steering box. I might be able to fix the shock pretty easy. And literally all of this damage that's in this picture right here, like all this, I'm just gonna cut that off with a grinder. I mean, it's just gonna, in that fender, I'm just gonna rip the fender off. It's gonna disappear. And probably this fender, I'm just gonna rip it off. Um, it just is going to disappear. The only problem is if the shock mount, you know what? Let's go look and see if that has moved. Um, because that shock should be right over in there somewhere, just to the left of where the windshield wiper tank is. And some of the lines in there look okay. It looks like mostly the fender, like the inner part of the fender well. Actually, yeah, I mean there could be some issues there. I'm looking at, you see that spring over on the far left where the ground cable is. I don't think that's supposed to be facing that way. I mean, maybe. It's been a while since I've looked at one of these. It just looks kind of fishy. So that inner fender well doesn't look horrible. Maybe it's crushed at the front, but not the back. I mean, that's kind of a crapshoot at what you're going to get there. So yeah, if I can get it just for absolutely nothing, if hopefully nobody bids on it, I can buy it for 175 bucks, and just, and if I throw another motor in it, the trannies in these are pretty good. The transfer cases are pretty good. Sometimes they bust or break. That happens. Um, but yeah, it's going to be a project, and you might strike gold, and you just throw some coolant in it, and a radiator cap, and a battery, and some fuses, and a shock tower, and a power steering, or a steering box, and yeah, and then it might work after you spend a fortune on this piece of crap. Um, yeah, so there's my summary. I hope you guys enjoyed, the review today on Copart. I'm gonna try to, if I don't buy this one, I'm gonna be looking at some more vehicles, so you guys get to tag along. And if there's something I missed that you're like, hey, this might work or this might not work, let me know. Give me a comment. If you like the channel, subscribe below, and give me a like, as well as, stay tuned for more content. And I'll catch you guys later.